Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast, and we're all here, and we're all talking football. It's a bit of a bumper episode, this one, because we've had to cover the Christmas break. So we've got games going all the way up to the new year, and all that means is lots and lots and lots and lots of football. Wherever you're checking us out, wherever you're getting this podcast, whether you're hearing or watching us, please do consider subscribing. It's a big help to us, and we really do appreciate it. Right, let's get going. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Recording in progress.
Well, it looks like we've got a foreign correspondent on the podcast for your YouTube watchers. We can see who's definitely making all the picks this week. Look at that beautiful face. Paul, it's over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to another instalment of the football podcast, giving you your weekly update of all things Championship and assorted otherness, I suppose, in the round-shaped ball world. Well, let's put it this way. It's a good thing we're not doing a Premier League-based podcast, as we wouldn't have really had that much to talk about this week, would we? So
We could talk about all the P's.
there was a lot of P's.
And when I went to do the...
Amy Britton would not have been happy.
I went to do all the scores and was like, I'm glad I'm not looking at those ones, because look at all those P's.
Unbelievable. And
Pizza.
I don't know what was just said.
I know.
Is the audio not very good on mine?
It's all right. Paul looking confused.
I didn't hear it either.
Do you want to switch to something else?
I can hear you. Maybe it's these guys. Maybe they're going deaf.
Huh?
It's about 4 o'clock.
That was almost in perfect tandem.
It was.
Anyway, so we'll probably get to all the postponements and whatnot a little bit later in the podcast. But for now, why don't we go through the games that did get played last week, and let's see if any of us were correct in our predictions for those games.
I'm not going to lie. I've been really excited about this. I've been really excited. I was like, I'm so excited. It was a weird one because today marks the point in time where we are probably going to predict the most football games maybe ever on a football podcast on our network. But in contrast to that, we're going to talk about possibly the least number of games predicted, even when it's international break and stuff. I went back through the book to look for something. I was like, even when it was international break, we predicted 2 games. It was podcast derby last week, which meant that 2 of the teams followed by this here podcast were going up against each other. And an interesting game it was, but we're not talking in that game yet. We're talking about the mighty Borough taking on AFC Bournemouth. So, Paul, tell us about this game.
Well, Andrew, this was the live game, which usually would be opposite the early kick-off in the Premier League. But as we'd previously discussed, that game did not go ahead. So this was unopposed on Sky Sports, which means that even more people than normal would have probably seen it and seen what could only be described as a wonderful 1-0 home victory.
It is wonderful.
I sadly missed the entirety of the first half as we were out shopping.
It's almost like they didn't advertise what time kickoff was before it started.
I know. Crazy, isn't it? But I did manage to maintain the earpiece so I could, keep abreast of the situation. Whilst I was,
is a man who has done this before.
Exactly. Sensible. But yes, that 1-0 win was courtesy of an Andraz Sporar penalty.
Indeed, it was. Shall we play my favourite game called Put Your Hand Up if you had Middlesbrough down to win this game?
There we go.
For you YouTube watchers out there, you can see why I like to play this game, especially when I'm the only one holding my hand up. Obviously, we could talk about Put Your Hand Up if you picked Sporar to score, but I don't like that as much because then Stu gets to put his hand up. Yes, unfortunately, gentlemen, Paul, you did not back your team. And as you heavily predicted more goals on the other side of the fence, it reduced your opportunity to get any points. So no points for you. You are not alone, because not only did you predict a 1-2, so did Matthew Moore, and he also did not predict Sporar to score. No points for you. Obviously, Stu's 1-1 draw doesn't get him any points, but as we've already mentioned, he did pick Sporar. What that means, obviously, is when I apparently am the only person here that likes backing the home team, I do get a point, and I also picked Sporar to score, so it's 2 points for me. Now let's see if I can capitalise on my 2 points and bring home a W for the week. Podcast derby, as previously mentioned, and that means that Nottingham Forest went up against Hull City. Now then, this is a difficult situation because Stu's team and Matt's team. So somebody is going to have to tell us the score. Why don't one of you tell us the score and the other one tell us who scored the goals? If there were indeed any goals. Don't want to ruin it.
Can I tell you that the score at half-time was 1-0 to Hull?
If you like.
I'll tell you that the score at full-time was 2-1 Forest.
Oh.
This could be where we sort of bring in the thing that we discussed last week, and obviously Stu now wants to do the scoring up to half-time. And Matt wants to continue doing the scoring at full.
This is never going to fly. I don't think we can get this one off the ground with the I was winning at half time.
I mean, what I'm hearing is a point each, so just saying.
I mean, it's the fairest way, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It's funny. You should say that because there are points in this game for some people. So it was 2-1. Matt, who scored the 2 goals for Nottingham Forest?
Podcast favourite, Lewis Graben, and Brennan Johnson, not the second.
Correct. Stu, who scored the Hull goal?
Well, complete bingo cards at the ready, people. Mr. Keane Lewis Potter.
It was Podcast Derby with podcast favourites. They obviously listen in and they're like, we're going to give these boys a treat here. Speaking of treats, Paul, you had Nottingham Forest down to win. Just a point for you. It's fine. You also thought he's going to get them 60 goals at some point, so I'm going to put Graben down to score. So another point for you. Stu, you had Forest Down to win. No surprises there. And you had Graben to score. No surprises. Unfortunately, Matt, you joined me in the predicting a draw did not go the way we wanted. You did not predict Graben or Johnson to score, but you did predict Lewis Potter to score, so point for you there, sir. As I've said, I predicted a draw here. This is bad news for this man. I did predict Graben to score for Forest and Lewis Potter to score for Hull, though, so that's 2 points for me. What's interesting here is for the billionth week in a row, we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4 on the scoreboard for the week, because that's the week done. We got a 1, 2, 3, 4. Who got those numbers? Matt, bringing up the rear with 1 point for the week. Sorry to say. Paul, you are in third place. 2 points. Stu, second place with 3 points. And that can only mean that the football fan of us all got 4 points to win the week. Come on. Give it up.
Well done.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you. I appreciate your congratulations there.
I'm not bitter in the slightest. My tactic of predicting my own team to lose has worked for me so far, but not to the point where I can actually win the predictions. So.
I think it's. I mean, which would you prefer to be?
I mean, I'd absolutely prefer Hull to win.
So I think you keep on keeping on, sir. Paul, with 8 games to predict at this point in time. What do you want to do? Do you want to get on stuck into those, or do you want to do this week in football?
I think, Andy, if we don't start the predictions for next week's games soon, we probably won't have finished them by the time the first game kicks off.
This is what I'm thinking.
So
you could intersperse the predictions through the rest of the podcast.
Could do. Shall we make a start on next week's prediction?
Let's make a start. We're doing it a little differently this week because due to high volume of predictions, I requested all predictions to be sent in to me ahead of time. We've got another podcast derby. Can you believe it? It is not, however, Hull City versus Blackburn Rovers. No. But that is the first game of the week. So, what I've got here is Paul predicting a 2-0 Hull defeat with... You might have to help out on the pronunciation of this one because I've written this name down differently 3 times because of the way that it was sent to me. 3.
Excellent. So I'll go as I know it's my pick and I know what I said. I believe I will have given this man his full Christian or given name of Ben Brereton. Whereas I believe the other 2 may have given him his full Hispanic name of Brereton Diaz.
You are absolutely correct. That is what's happened. Either this person is got a very similar name to somebody else, or it could just be the same person. You've predicted him for both of
Andy,
your goals.
You know how it works. You're born and raised in Stoke-on-Trent, and then for some reason you discover that you can just turn out for the Chile national football team. So why don't you?
You see, the problem is finally solved because all that talk about that Chile night in Stoke Done. That's it.
I believe Matthew that it is his mother that is from Chile.
I was going to say it wasn't like the Scottish teams and the Irish teams in the 90s. Andy Townsend, who sounded like he was born with like right near to the those belts, and was actually it was Ray Houghton, wasn't it, who was born in Scotland, grew up in London, but played for the Republic of Ireland or something like that. He's got that.
There's some absolute pearlers. Like Bernie Slaven was the same, the most broad Scot you'll ever hear, turned out for the Republic of Ireland just because, you know.
Why
But
not?
my favourite one was definitely Clinton Morrison, who ended up playing for Ireland because, you know, he'd probably been on a stag do to Dublin once or something like that.
Well, he piled over there himself. It was like.
Anyway, yes, Ben Brereton to get 2.
Indeed. Stu, you have gone on a similar route. You've gone with Blackburn Rovers getting 1 and Hull getting 0. You have also picked somebody similar because you've given him a different name. Matt is all over this as well with a 1-3 Blackburn Rovers victory. No real surprise to me when I wrote it down, but he's gone with the Honeyman. Brendan Diaz 2 and Buckley from what I managed to write down. And of course, you're all wrong because it's going to be a 1-0 to Hull. Wilkes to score.
Guy knows.
This guy knows. Which brings us swiftly onto the podcast derby for the week, because apparently this is a theme of the podcast. Middlesbrough take on Nottingham Forest. Oh, we've got some right old scores going on here. I will point out before, and I my hand to made up deity, before anybody sent any predictions in, especially Matt, I had already put my predictions in the book. I assure you all, especially Matt. So you can't smell. You smell nothing. You smell
Doesn't smell like anything else to anyone.
nothing.
Is that the aroma of collusion?
Smells like truth biscuits. Paul has backed his team. He's on with a 1-0 Middlesbrough win. Tavernier to score. Stu had to decide which of his 2 footballing compadres he was going to side with, and has gone with Matthew. A 1-2 to Nottingham Forest, with Watmore to score for Middlesbrough, and Zinkernagel and Graban to score for Forest. Matt has gone with a Desmond, Sporar and Coburn to score for Middlesbrough, and there's this name, Graban and Zinkernagel. I don't know where he got the idea there. I went with a Desmond, Sporar and Crooks to score for Middlesbrough. No crossing out either. I didn't make any changes. I also went with Graban, but I'm liking the Graban Johnson combo at the moment. So that's who I've gone. I definitely didn't edge my bets by going, I can't pick between the teams, so I'll just give them both a goal, then give them another one, and just pick some of the podcast favourites. 6.
Can we just point out that Andy said the Graban Johnson combination, not what you think you might have heard just then.
6 games to predict. So what do you want to do?
Well, hang on, because I was going to say, if it makes it anyone's decision that they want to change it, bear in mind, Jed Spence won't be playing in this game. And from what I understand from another podcast that I was listening to earlier on today, Forest don't have a replacement right wing back as the other one's injured. so they might have to play someone in an auxiliary position.
I'm not changing.
Interesting. I am also not changing.
The way he defended the Hull goal on the weekend, that's not going to make it defensively. Possibly attacking, yes, but defensively, oh dear.
I mean, I'd like to say that I'm surprised, but we did discuss this when he sat on lower.
So, 6 more games to predict. What do you want to do?
I say you just go bang, 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 and just give the public what they need to know.
Commit a murder. Bang, bang, bang. Okay. Blackpool versus Middlesbrough. There we go. I've done it. I've pulled the trigger. So, it's an interesting one because there are no matching scores. Paul, you have a draw of a 1-1 with Yates and Sporar scoring. Stu doesn't like Middlesbrough, let's put it that way, with a 1-0 defeat with Bowler to score. Matt prefers Middlesbrough's chances a little bit more with a 1-2. I've got you down for Lavery to score for Blackpool. And Watmore and Crooks to score for Middlesbrough. As we know by now, I'm all about the home teams. It's a 1-0 to the Borough, so a 0-1 for the book. I've gone with Tavernier to score.
Beautiful.
What can I say? I like to mix it up a little.
He's due. He's got to be due a goal.
That is not what I thought you were saying. On to an interesting game where apparently Paul's mention of collusion has come into play. Sheffield United take on Hull City, and according to 3 of the people here, it's going to be a 2-1 Sheffield United win. Not this guy. This guy knows.
I knew it was. If I had to pick, I just knew it was going to be you.
Of course it's going to be me.
You just can't do it, can you? You can't throw any team under the bus. You have to feel like you have to be the home of it.
I've got to be the guy. I've got to support the teams. I've got to support the troops. All of you.
Who won the predictions this week?
I didn't want to say it's you. I didn't want to say it.
It's all well and good me talking. It's sat here with 2 points on the predictions.
Paying those divvies, innit? Getting those dividends in. All of you have gone with Sharp to score one of the 2 goals. Now then, let's see if I can get all these. McGoldrick for Stu. Hourahan.
That's mine.
No, sorry. Paul, you went with McGoldrick. Stu, you went with Hourahan. And Matt, you went with Masset.
Mousset, I think it is.
Mousset. Lys Mousset.
Sounds a little French for my liking. Is he French? Is he French?
Say about that the best.
Is he French? For your.
Did someone kick him out of the call?
For your.
I enjoyed that one.
Oh, I'm sure you did, sir.
For your 1 Hull goal, Paul has gone Lewis Potter. Stu has picked up the Honeyman slack this week because Matt has gone with Wilkes. And with Paul, though, the 1 goal scored in this game will be scored by Lewis Potter. Brings us swiftly on to Nottingham Forest versus Huddersfield. Or Huddersfield, if you want the correct pronunciation. 3 of 4 have gone with a Nottingham Forest win. Who didn't? Find out soon. Paul, you went with Nottingham Forest 2, Huddersfield 0. Graben and Johnson to score. Somebody else that likes that combo. I see how that's working. Stu. Nottingham Forest are in the room, so he's got to give them a goal. 1-0 with Johnson to score. Matt, if there's a man who loves a Desmond, it is Matthew Moore. 2-2. Taylor, Johnson, Ward and Pearson. Or, as I wrote it down, Pearson. And I've gone with Nottingham Forest 2-0. Graben and Zinkernagel. Flipped it on you. Only 3 games left of the 8 games. At this point in time, we should probably point out the reason we're predicting 8 football games is to get us through to the new year. At this point in time of recording, we're staring down the barrel of Christmas and New Year. And let's face it, nobody wants to have to do a podcast at Christmas, apart from me, because I'll be doing a podcast at Christmas.
I'd rather do podcasts at Christmas in many respects to me.
Stu, call me. we'll set something up. 3 games left. And are there any points left that we can get out of these games? Let's find out. Sheffield United are taking on the mighty Borough. Now then, 2 people predicted Middlesbrough to win. 2 people predicted Middlesbrough to lose. Paul. 2-1 Sheffield United.
He's going back to his old club on the first day of the year after everyone's going to have a skinful the night before.
You've got Sharp. You've got Sharp down to score 2 goals.
Yeah. I'll double check. I'm pretty sure I've got that.
And Watmore to score for the Borough. Stu, you like Middlesbrough's chances, just not a lot. You've gone a 0-1 with Howson to score.
Can I ask Paul a question at this point? So, I've predicted Borough to lose to Forest and to Blackpool. Would it not be the most possibly Borough thing in the world to then turn up at Sheffield United, having had a skinful the night before, as you pointed out, and actually win?
Well, yeah, but they won't lose in the first 2 games, so...
Well, that was my thinking, so...
Matt, he agrees with Paul. 2-1 to Sheffield United with Gibbs White and Nadai? Oh, I got it on the second go. Sporar scoring for the Borough. And other than Stu, you're all wrong, because it's a 2-0 Middlesbrough win. Sporar and Watmore. Blackpool versus Hull. Let's do this. Something weird has happened here because everybody's predicted Hull to win. And I mean everybody. Looking at you.
Yeah, because teams...
Looking at you.
Decent teams don't lose against Blackpool.
I've got to stand by my word, haven't I?
Stand by your word. Paul, it's 1-0 to Hull. Wilkes to score. Stu likes that action. 1-0 to Hull. Wilkes to score. Matt is with you, but apparently Blackpool are in the room, so he's given them a goal. Yates to score for Blackpool, but Lewis Potter and Longman to score for Hull. I've been that guy because I've gone 1-0 to Hull, and it's my turn to pick up the Honeyman. final game of the predictions, the final game of 8 predictions, which takes us into the new year, is Nottingham Forest versus the most Yorkshire team in the world, Barnsley. Well, what can I say? I thought I was thinking outside the box when I put my prediction. I was like, I'm going old school. I'm taking it way back. I'm going with a 2-1 Nottingham Forest win. But Barnsley, I'll give them a goal because, you know, we're in Yorkshire, so you got to give them a goal. I went with Grabban and Garner to score for Forest. But I put Woodrow down to score for Barnsley. And I thought these guys are going to be coming in with 1-0, 0-0s. Barnsley to win. I found myself out in the cold, didn't I? Because Paul Williams starts the ball rolling with a Nottingham Forest 3-0. Grabban for 2 and Yates. And when you think that's...
Give him his full name.
I believe what was sent to me was Yates Shithouse.
There we go.
If you think that's crazy, we can always talk to Stu about his 4-0. Grabham Deuces. Colback Spence.
That one might be impossible. Because if Middlesbrough trigger his recall clause, he'll be back.
That is a very good point. I hadn't even thought about that. I'd be surprised if they call him back right away as soon as it ticks over at the first.
Because football clubs don't do shithouse things to each other all the time.
Can we put the caveat in that if he's not there, then that Grabban's just going to score a hat-trick?
Yeah.
Do you not want to take the option of if he's been recalled, you automatically get the person that plays in his place?
I'd have gone with if he gets recalled, I just get a point. I'd have gone with that one. Point for a recall, like absolutely. I'm putting all of these scores in. I'm like, these scores are crazy, and then Matt pops up 3-1. It's like maybe it's not that crazy. Grabban, Lolly. Another player, McKenna? McKenna? Probably that's my writing. I had to write it real small. And for Barnsley, Adebayo. Not to be mistaken for Adebayo. That, ladies and jelly spoons, is 8 games predicted. I've been this week's champion, and I'd like to be addressed as such from now on. My full name will be Andy Week Champion. Or just your lordship, one of those. So I can't offer you any more predictions, I'm afraid. We're going to have to talk something else like football news. Obviously, depending on how much news, depends whether we need a break or not. So
there's not really been that much that's happened, to be honest. So we'll keep it short and sweet. Shock horror. Games are getting cancelled.
Wait, what?
Again, it's a shocker, and I'm amazed that people, didn't see it coming and stuff like that. But yeah, there's some games have already been called off for Boxing Day. The ones I'd seen off the top of my head were all in they're all in League 2 from what I'd seen. It was Bradford at home to Harrogate, Exeter at home to Swindon, Newport at home to Forest Green, and that was it. I think there were some other games in Leagues 1 and the Championship as well, but they all seem to be showing us still on. at this particular time. So it's a shame. As obviously a lot of people's sort of plans at Christmas are evolve around the football. So it is a shame that some games won't go ahead. But unfortunately, that's part and parcel of the current situation and climate that we're in, unfortunately.
I have seen a few more a bit closer to home Cardiff City have announced that their Boxing Day fixture at home to Coventry is off. Barnsley's game against Stoke is also off. The League 2 ones that you mentioned are also in the same article, so there are a couple of Championship games as well.
Not ideal. Obviously, the knock-on effect that it has is obviously it just makes the fixture congestion a lot worse later on in the season, as obviously the games will need to be played at some point. So it's just whenever a team has a free week, and they can arrange it with the opposite team.
The whole City manager decided to stick his oar in there because obviously being the resident medical expert of the Championship, on an interview with Radio Humberside, said that he knew there was going to be a meeting with all the EFL managers on Monday, just past. He said, "For me, what's the point? We have to keep going because what's the point in having a week break or a 2-week break? How long is it going to be?" Well, Grant, I'd suggest as long as it fucking takes, you moron, because people get poorly if not. So
yeah, that's what it boils down to, and that's what we're dealing with at the minute. But
rather than commenting on everybody else's, he should just keep his own house in order. Because if he can keep Hull City up and keep that squad COVID free, that guy deserves his wages. Put it that way. So
he could always go back to his medical career anyway, and he was going to get sacked. Fine.
Exactly.
Just one of them things where it's just going to go flying round at the rate it's going at the moment, and we'll see where it gets us.
In theory, if it's a 10-day isolation and it's got, especially the Premier League, it seems to be going through like a cheap curry at the moment, then like you'd find that in 2 weeks players might be all right. So are they going to revert back to this behind closed doors business? Obviously, Scotland have announced on the day of recording that fixtures from Boxing Day onwards are going to have to be played in crowds of 500, played with crowds of 500 or less. So, that might be a thing. I have tickets for Boxing Day, so I hope not. So we'll see.
All will become clear in the next couple of weeks.
Unless your name's Boris Johnson.
Any other news? Oh, okay. Any other business? Okay,
well... The only thing... Quickly, the light-hearted thing, go and see the Belgian Red Devils Christmas cards. They are hilarious. Just Google it, or go on Twitter. It's fantastic. We'll find some.
Okay. Well, there we go. So all that leaves is for us, the collective football podcast, to say Merry Christmas to listeners and watchers out there. A Happy New Year, because we've predicted games into the new year. Thank you for sticking with us over this time, and we hope to see you bright and breezy in the new year. Thank you very much, boys. See you next time. Bye. So there we go. What do you think to that? Another one done. Another week gone. Another week of games gone, but weeks of games to come. Bumper edition of the Football Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for listening along and enjoying the Football Podcast. We will be back in the new year talking more football. Until then, wherever you get your podcasts, please do consider subscribing. And you can also jump over to our website, thecookiecast.com. Check out what we've got going on there and drop us a line, get in touch with us. That's it for now. Until next year, I'll say bye and I'll see you then.